About a month before kickoff, that regiment tried a complete dress rehearsal of a 40-kilometer night infiltration, and it was full of snafus. Battalions moved out of sync and they couldn't find each other in the dark. The logistics section couldn't keep up with the main body, and they just decided that they were going to take a shortcut and meet the main body down the road. The regimental commander lost touch with his signals company, and hence he had no comms, and therefore he could not command his regiment. And when they all debriefed this fiasco the next day, they found that there was only one company in the regiment that had actually stayed together all night. All the other companies lost 10 or 15% of their soldiers along the march. Furthermore, this after-action review turned into a kind of blame game and cat fight. The regimental commander bitched out this battalion commander who'd failed to get his battalion to the right place at the right time and ended up holding up the whole regiment. But then, right in front of everybody, that battalion commander who got criticized sassed the regimental CO for making a hash of the whole exercise himself. And so, who was he to blame anyone else? This had to have been mortifying for everyone in that room. However, this was not exceptional. People were busy all up and down the chain of command having a crisis of confidence that went straight up to the top to the Central Military Commission, the CMC in Beijing. So they sent down none other than Wei Guoqing, formerly the PLA's head advisor to Vietnam back in the 50s. See our previous miniseries about that. Wei Guoqing knew that theater of Vietnam as well as any senior officer in China. So he was the man that Beijing sent on a fact-finding mission. He visited the very regiment that crapped the bed that night in the exercise and then bickered like 13-year-olds. So Wei went down there to observe a do-over exercise and assess, if we invade Vietnam, will it be a huge clown show, yes or no? Amazingly, Wei's assessment was, no, it will not be a clown show. We will get bloodied, but we will still come out looking pretty good. Friends, you and I have the advantage of a historical hindsight. We know how badly that went. So how the hell did Wei Guoqing draw that conclusion and think that they were going to score like an A- on the invasion of Vietnam? And how did he get that conclusion from watching a regiment where one soldier in 10 proved that he couldn't march from here to there in a peacetime field exercise without getting lost in the woods and going all self-MIA? How, in the name of Marx and Engels, did they convince this inquisitor from Beijing who knew all about warfare in northern Vietnam? How did they convince him that they were squared away and ready to fight? Hoo-ah, sir! It was because they did still have one company, the only 120 men in their regiment, who marched from point A to point B intact. And so they chose that fourth company as their showpiece unit. And these guys practiced this routine where in front of General Wei's observing eyes, they would ride tanks to an objective and then pretend to assault it and occupy it and then hunker down and prepare to defend it against imaginary Vietnamese counterattack. So when General Wei arrived, they performed and they performed well, and he approved. Wei just had a few helpful tips, and these were really fateful, friends. One was he thought that troops were laden too heavily, with 50 pounds apiece. That was too heavy, he said, for a fast-moving light infantry force. Okay, it is heavy. So what did he advise? He said, they don't need to carry all that food. Instead of giving them rations for close to a week, just have them carry 3 days worth of crackers and we'll call it good. After all, he said, if our logistics people cannot reach them within 3 days to resupply them, well, then we have a pretty crap logistics service. Friends, wait, do you hear that? That's the sound of foreboding. Inside the 121st Division, officers did acknowledge that their soldiers really were overloaded. Plenty of men were expected to carry more than half their body weight on what was supposed to be this fast-moving penetration that would snake its way behind the lines before the Vietnamese defenders even knew what was happening. So yeah, more than half their body weight, that really was too much. But what were they supposed to leave behind? The divisional staff struggled with whether and how to follow Wei Wuqing's advice and lighten the load for their men. But of course, they were worried about leaving behind anything that might prove to be useful in the Badlands of Vietnam. Well, in the end, the soldiers solved this question for them. They took matters into their own hands, and on invasion night, they just abandoned their equipment along the way. We have accounts like this from all over the Sino-Vietnamese War. People everywhere say that you could trace the paths that PLA troops took into Vietnam just by following the trail of stuff that they discarded along the way, even weapons. After the war, their sister division estimated that each of their men threw away an average of 6 items of kit. And far from punishing this kind of behavior, the officers were doing it too.